Hello everyone, it's Wednesday's lesson, and we're going to talk about the time Jesus preached to the spirits in prison. Now, people who believe in the immortality of the soul point to 1 Peter 3:19 as proof that people have an immortal soul. Now understand, they believe that those spirits were all of the people who died during Noah's flood, whose immortal souls were now in, what they call purgatory, waiting for a final purification before being admitted into heaven. Now, there are a couple of problems with this. First, as we saw this week, the Bible teaches that the dead know nothing. They do not praise or worship God, and that the dead are in fact asleep and remain until the second coming of Jesus. So how can the dead receive a sermon from Jesus if they know nothing? Secondly, the people who died during the flood were not saints. These were people who were so violent that God had to send a flood to stop the violence. These were people who openly rejected God's offer of salvation, and they died in open rebellion. They died lost. We would also have to believe that there's a second chance to be saved. Again, something the Bible doesn't teach. As a matter of fact, every single Protestant denomination rejects the idea of a second chance, that during the time between the crucifixion and the resurrection, Christ descended into hell with the intent of trying to save the dead spirits who live there. Here's what you need to know about the teaching of purgatory. Purgatory is supposed to be a holding place where the saints receive their final purification before going to heaven, which means these spirits who died during the flood have spent thousands of years in some sort of purgatory. And if there was a second chance, then why preach it to only those people who died during the flood? Why not the folks of Sodom and Gomorrah? How about all the people who died from Adam and Eve on? How about all of the Israelites who were swallowed up by the earth when they worshiped the golden calf? Why, if Jesus was going to be preaching the gospel in hell, why not preach it to everybody? Why just that group? Does that sound like something Jesus would do to you? Okay, so what is Peter saying? Peter is making the point that back in the day of Noah, Noah was a type of Christ, who, through the power of the Holy Spirit, preached both salvation and judgment. Noah's preaching would come to symbolize a future salvation and judgment to come. The people of Noah's day rejected that salvation, and as such, ended up in a prison known as the grave. Now fast forward to Christ, who also preached the same message of salvation and judgment to those who are lost and will be imprisoned in the grave for all eternity. Now, how do we know that this is the connection Peter was trying to make? Because in verses 20 and 21, Peter points out that just like the floodwaters washed away the sin in Noah's world, water baptism washes away our sin. And how does God do this? Through the power of the resurrection. That was our nugget for today. Again, have a look at your lesson, and we'll see you tomorrow.